We've all seen the YouTube videos telling you the top 5 anime you need to watch or the top 10 anime you need to watch, and all of these same kinds of lists over and over again. I wanted to kind of approach this a little bit differently and tell you the best anime that you should avoid. I'm not going to call it a top 5 list, but I do have 5 series that I think, despite being really good, are something that maybe you shouldn't be watching. I just want to rip the band-aid off right away. The first show I'm going to mention is Tokyo Ghoul. I've talked about it before. I don't want to spend too long on it. I've made it pretty clear in past videos that I don't like the crowd that will tell anime viewers to read the manga. I just don't think it's a good argument for defending an anime. And if I'm trying to watch the anime, then that's what I want to do. I don't really want to read the manga. Tokyo Ghoul is probably, after Berserk, the big exception to that rule because I think even people that have never picked up the manga, like myself, can look at the Tokyo Ghoul anime and tell something went wrong. It's one of those series where we kind of have to pretend that the anime never existed, unfortunately. I personally even thought season 1 was kind of overrated and overhyped. I think I gave it a 5 out of 10. I thought it was average, but after that, it was all downhill and everything else is just worse. There's plenty of series we can say that for, where either the ending fell apart or seasons 2 just didn't hold up quite as well as the original seasons. But Tokyo Ghoul, I think, was kind of a train wreck from the beginning. And despite the popularity it got and how big it is, I would not recommend it at all. If we get a remake of it, then I'll probably pick it up. But right now, as Tokyo Ghoul stands, the anime is atrocious. The next series I want to talk about is Gintama. Gintama absolutely dominates the My Anime List top anime chart. I just counted to double check. Of the top 10 anime entries on My Anime List, Gintama is 3 of them. As you keep scrolling down, 8 of the top 25 anime, it's actually 8 of the top 23 anime on My Anime List, are some iteration of Gintama. And it's a great show. Like everything I'm going to mention here, it's a show that is generally seen as really good, even by me. I like Gintama a lot. The problem with Gintama is that it's a parody series. It would be like watching a South Park or a Family Guy or something like that without knowing anything about American culture and movies and current events and things like that. Gintama, as good as it is, just has too many references that are going to go over your head as a viewer, a lot that went over my head as a viewer. There's a ton of anime references. If you watch a lot of anime, you'll get them. Obviously, the big ones you'll get to, the Gundams and the Dragon Balls. You don't even need to watch those to understand the parody. But a lot of the jokes are about Japanese events and pop culture and music and TV shows and celebrities that you're just gonna miss, and those jokes are gonna completely go over your head. There's a lot of jokes that rely on wordplay as well, and the subtitles will help you understand the jokes, but reading the subtitles and then finally understanding the wordplay won't really translate to that joke being funny. It's unfortunate because Gintama is great, but it's not something I could ever recommend to someone unless they are really, really heavily into at least one of these mediums. If you've watched a really high amount of anime, if you've watched a lot of Japanese television, things like that, if you can speak Japanese, then sure, I think Gintama is it's an enjoyable show. I think it's a great parody show, but unfortunately, it's the kind of show that if you don't get the references, the jokes aren't going to land as frequently as they should. But the jokes that land are great. I just think spending 400 plus episodes and several movies worth of time for a lot of jokes that go over your head could be spent better elsewhere. I don't like gatekeeping things, but like I said, I wouldn't recommend this to you unless you really dive headfirst into anime or any Japanese culture or anything first before starting this series. I think that would make it a lot more enjoyable. If Gintama was one of your first anime, I think you would be more confused than anything else. The third series on this list is Serial Experiments Lane. The first thing I have to mention, and it's going to sound ridiculous, it's going to sound like the most nitpicky complaint you will ever hear. Lane has the most obnoxious title cards I have ever seen in my life. It's such an odd complaint, but I'm going to just play one real quick right now just to show you how obnoxious these intro cards are.
Present day. Present time.
Like that's ridiculous. That's every episode is that, and it's jarring every time. It never gets easier to get past that. Once you finally pass the title cards and the intro screen and get into the actual episodes, it's hard to follow. And I get it that it's a psychological thriller series, and they're kind of supposed to do that. They're supposed to mess with you. They're supposed to get in your head. But Lane, I feel like Lane confused me for all the wrong reasons. I'm ready for the comments saying that, oh, I just didn't get it. It was me, that I as a viewer just didn't understand what was happening. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that, but overall, I love series like this. I love these psychological thrillers, horrors. I've talked about Perfect Blue before. Paprika's another absolutely incredible anime movie. I love things that make me think and kind of distort reality a bit. So, for that reason, I wanted to love Lane. I wanted to be one of these big brain cult fanatics of Serial Experiments Lane, but I just walked away so disappointed after every episode. I feel like the initial concept was pretty good, and all of the predictive technology things were incredible. I think it's from 98, 97, maybe. And when you look at the computers and the phones that they're using, I think it actually held up really well in terms of the technology. So, I mean, huge props there. But all of the what the hell just happened moments that you'll see in any psychological thriller were not because of some big reveal or twist or something crazy happening that's gripped the viewers, and it's you're just trying to wrap your mind around it. All of the what the hell just happened moments in Lane are purely because something just genuinely didn't make sense, or it was so weird and out of left field. It was just like a head scratcher for me more than anything else. There's just so many things that happened that were out of place or odd. So for every cool thing that Lane did, I feel like there was more that took away from it. And I walked away incredibly disappointed. Most things with a cult following, I see what they're following could be latching onto. I don't see it for Lane. And while we're on the topic of strange, odd anime series, a big, big anime I have to add to this list is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I get why people would be interested in watching it. There's so much talk about it. There's so many memes about it. Everybody in every aspect of the anime community at least knows about it to some degree. kind of on the other side of the coin where Gintama is referencing every anime, it feels like everything is referencing Jojo, and any JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan is recommending JoJo's immediately. Anytime anyone asks, hey, what should I watch next? No matter what their criteria are for what they're looking for, a JoJo's fan will recommend you just watch JoJo's. However, there are quite a few problems with JoJo's and reasons that I wouldn't recommend it, at least not to everybody. The first issue I have is a pretty common issue even amongst JoJo super fans, and part 1 and 2 are just not very good. They're pretty average, mediocre, and when you compare them to the rest of the series, they're downright bad. I do look back on it kind of fondly, and I remember liking some of the characters and some of the events, but actually sitting there and watching the 24 episode season took me about a month. And then after I finally got through that, I was just so not interested in the next parts. It took me, I think, 3 or 4 years to pick JoJo's back up and start Stardust Crusaders and get into part 3 where I feel like it actually started to hit his stride. I think once Stans showed up, it got the ball rolling and things were much better. So that a super slow start with an absolutely terrible hook combined with what JoJo's is. It's just bizarre. It's odd, it's weird, it's over the top, it's ridiculous. It absolutely is. All of these characters just doing these ridiculous attacks and poses and everything going on is so absurd that while a lot of people will find it incredibly enjoyable, I think a lot of people will be turned off by that, and it could be seen as off-putting to a lot of viewers. So, I mean, despite the massive cultural impact and footprint that JoJo's has, it's just not for everyone. Me personally, after I finally got into part 3 and I started actually enjoying the series and seeing kind of what the fans were seeing in it, even then I still struggle with every part seems like it has 2 or 3 characters that I just can't stand, and it makes it so difficult to sit through episodes that revolve around those characters. And there are absolutely parts of it that drag for way longer than they need to. I think JoJo's has some really high highs, but the lows are difficult to watch for me. It took me a really long time to appreciate JoJo's, and there's going to be a lot of people out there that never appreciate it, no matter how hard they try. The final series that I wanted to bring up here, I think, is more of a surprising one, and it's the original Full Metal Alchemist. I know that maybe not by checking stats on websites, but I know that there's a lot of debate as to which Full Metal Alchemist people preferred. I have heard a lot of people say that whichever one they watched first was the one that they enjoyed more. So maybe I'm biased because I did actually see Brotherhood first, but I genuinely just don't see a good reason to choose the original FMA over Brotherhood. If you want, you can probably find some joint viewing guide out there where you can watch the beginning of the original FMA until it diverges, and then you pick up Brotherhood from that episode. I feel like that could be effective because the original FMA, it explained some things in a little more detail, but even just watching Brotherhood standalone, I don't think you're missing anything, and it gets the job done, and it's still very entertaining. It doesn't feel like it was rushed to me, even though it's more concise in Brotherhood. The problem with the original is once it diverges, I feel like we just lose so many great moments and great characters that we do experience in Brotherhood that it's just not comparable for me. I think some of the best characters in Brotherhood are never even introduced in the original. And my biggest complaint with the original is the ending. I don't think either of the two movies for the original FMA were anything spectacular. And one of the movies, Conqueror of Shambhala, serves as the finale of the FMA series. I just think comparing that movie to the ending of Brotherhood is ridiculous. Brotherhood is far and away better than anything that happened in that movie. There's just a very sizable gap in the quality of each. I don't really want to get into spoilers just in case you haven't seen either or both yet, but I genuinely don't see a reason to watch the original FMA unless you are really, really curious as to what changed and where the differences lie. But I think if you're just looking to watch a good show, just watch Brotherhood. When we talk about something like Hunter x Hunter, it's always about the 2011 version. No one is ever talking about the 1999 version, and I don't see a reason why the Full Metal Alchemist debate should be any different. And that's it.